All right, so let's talk about segments of secants and tangents. We talked previously about segments of secant's theorem in which the external segment of a secant, the external secant of a segment multiplied by the entire segment will be equal to another secant that meets at the same point that goes through the same circle. Well, tangents and secants, when they're together from the same circle, work in the same way. And as we recall, a secant is a line that passes through a circle, intercepting it in 2 points, and a tangent intercepts the circle at exactly 1 point. So when a secant segment and a tangent segment share an endpoint outside the circle, point E here, let's actually change our color, point E here, then the product of the lengths of the secant segment and its external segment equals the square of the length of the tangent segment, which what does that mean? So EC, let's do that in red because that's the segment. EC is our secant because it passes through the circle, has 2 points. So EC, the external segment right here, times ED, the entire segment, just like with the secant segment, is going to be equal to the tangent segment. Now the tangent segment only has one segment. From our endpoint here to the point of tangency on the circle. So we are going to square our tangent segment. And let's look at an example of what this might look like. So here we have RQ is a tangent to the circle. So RQ squared is going to be equal to the external segment times the length of the entire segment. So let's substitute and do some math. And let's keep our colors consistent. So we have 16 squared then we have 8, and RT is going to be 8 plus X. A little more space. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times X is 8X. $16 squared is 256. Let's subtract 64 from both sides. That'll cancel, leaving us with 8X. And 256 minus 64 equals 192. Divide both sides by 8, and we get left with X equals 24. So X equals 24. Now, since we're going to have squares, we're going to have square roots, we're going to have numbers times numbers, sometimes we may have to factor these things. So let's look at a couple more examples and get a little more confidence. So X is the tangent. So we're going to square X, and that's going to equal the external segment, 1, times the entire segment, 3 plus 1. Well, 3 plus 1 is 4 times 1 is 4, and that's just going to equal x squared. And the square root of 4 is 2, so x equals 2 when we take the square root of both sides. Let's try one that's going to tax us just a little more. So here we're going to have our tangent. So we have 12 squared equals our external segment times our entire secant segment. So 12 squared equals 144. And then over here we're going to have x times x is x squared, x times 10 is 10 squared, or 10x, excuse me. We subtract 144 from both sides, because when we factor quadratics, we want them equal to 0. That cancels, so we're going to have 0 equals x squared plus 10x minus 144. Now, if we recall our factoring, let's go to purple for this. If we recall our factoring, this equation here is the same as, let's fix our 44, x plus a times x plus b. So when we do FOIL, we end up with x squared plus bx plus ax plus a times b. Then we would combine our like terms, and we have x squared plus a plus b times x plus ab. So a times b equals negative 144, and a plus b equals 10. So we need to find our factors that give us a multiple of 144, but add together for 10. Okay, let's go back to green for our factors. So what do we know? We know that we have a negative number here. We have a negative number. So one of the factors has to be negative, but they add to 10. So the bigger number is going to be positive. So let's go through the factors of negative 144. Well, negative 1 and 144, negative 2 and 72, negative 3 and 48, negative 4 and 36. Well, add these together and we have 143. That's not 10. Add these together and it's 70. Add these together and we have 45. Add these together and we have 32. We're headed in the right direction, but we're not there yet. Well, 5 doesn't go evenly into 144, so we'll skip that. 6 goes into it 24 times. That equals 18. We are getting closer. 7 does not go into 144. Negative 8 does. And negative 8 plus 18 is 10. So we stop. We found our factors. So x is going to equal, so we have x minus 8 times x plus 18 equals 0. So x equals 8 because 8 minus 8 is 0, and x is going to equal a negative 18. We're dealing in distance, so that is our answer. And we